I am going to get started. I thought it might be just nice to share some helpful tips that I have found over the last several years. And Google is always, always, always adding new things to all of their Google Suite things. So Google Classroom is no exception. So we'll talk about some of those things, but just go over some of the basics. In a new tab, if you click on the little waffle buttons, their Google Classroom icon is right here. And if you just click on Google Classroom, it will take you there and you can hit the join button. And when you hit the join button, you just have to type in the code and it is right here. You can join it that way. And then once you get in there, it'll be a classroom where we can kind of play around and I can show you some of the tips and tricks that we are going to play with today. And then at the end, hopefully there'll be plenty of time for other people to share really cool things that I totally didn't get to. One really cool thing about joining this Google Classroom. Obviously, you guys know if you're sharing with kids, you can click on the little button right up here in the banner. They call that the banner at the top. If you click on the little display button, of course, if you're displaying it in class, so that it's much larger for people to see. You can also copy the invite link and send it to students in an email to join your classroom. There's lots of different ways students can join. They can either add it themselves or you can just invite them all. Let's get started on some fun tips. One fun tip is that you can change the theme for each class. And so I will show you. So over here, I have all of my classes. This year, our classes are named after Avatar things. I don't even know anything about Avatar, but I know I'm not calling it the right thing, but they're Fire Nation, Earth Kingdom, Air Nomads, and Water Tribe. And I was able to go in and really change each banner to identify something about each of the groups. And so if I go back to this classroom, for example, the way you change the theme, Google has a lot of themes already in the select a theme thing, but they're all very generic and they're very, simple. They're fun to use, but you might want to change your theme to make it something else. So the way you can do that is by uploading a photo. So if you have a favorite photo that you want to add, you can just drag it in. The only thing is, I find that it's better to use a panoramic photo because that banner is long and thin. So you can either drag a photo in from your desktop or from your iPhoto. You can select a photo from your computer. What I ended up doing is I went to Canva. And I love Canva. That's a whole nother session. But I went to Canva and I created, in Canva, you can create banners just for this type of thing for Google Classroom. So I can select a photo from my computer. I have a couple on my desktop. Let me pick this one here. It uploads it, and then you can just adjust it. So I just made it in Canva. I downloaded it to my desktop, and now I can make that my class theme if I want to, and it will change it just like that. So that's kind of my first tip. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and just ask, but I'll just kind of keep going through. And if you need me to go back to anything afterwards, I can. So that's kind of a fun thing to do, to change the theme. I always try in mine, like if I'm doing it, I have I'll go back to my classes. I always try to put in there some very specific information like Earth Kingdom, Core 2, English Language Arts, because they're called Earth Kingdom for science, for social studies. And I always try to think, super important to think of, how is the way you set up your Google Classroom going to be helpful for students? It's also helpful to have it good for you as the teacher, but what is going to be the best way to organize it for the students? And so it's really important. And what I sometimes do is I ask a student that's in my learning lab, hey, can you show me what you see? And it really is eye-opening sometimes, like, oh, I thought you could view this way. And they're like, no, I can't. And then I'm like, oh, an eye-opening moment that what I thought was convenient for the students is not at all. And so it's really good to think, how is this going to be most helpful for students? So the first thing I just talked about was changing the theme for each class. I use Canva. I create something, they have a whole banner program. They have all sorts of templates, but you can create your own from scratch if you're super clever with that. And then you just save it on your desktop, and then you can make it your classroom banner. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was permissions, and that's in the settings. So if you go to your classes, and right up here where the three little lines are in the upper left-hand corner, that's called your menu. And when you click on your menu, you can go all the way down, way to the bottom. There's a button called settings. And so if you're the one, if it's your Google Classrooms, there's the settings button. And here's where you can change your profile picture. There are some things that I'm not sure we have permission to change, or if it's under a district administrator, you have to ask your administrator. But if you're tired of seeing every single email notification from Google Classroom from every one of your classes, it can be very overwhelming. You can turn that off or on. There's just a little toggle button there. You can select if you want to see comments on your posts, comments that mention you. So you can go in there, and I turned off due date reminders for my work because I would just get notifications for every single Google Classroom that I had. So it's kind of important to go through and decide what you want to see and what you don't want to see in your classrooms. So that's right under the settings tab. And if you want to see it again, it's way at the bottom underneath all of your classes, and it's right down there. If you teach the same class from year to year, you can create a template for that class with all of the assignments and everything in that class. And then you can copy an entire class. So this, I made a link. So, I want to show you. So you can copy an entire class. So if you go to your classes, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on the menu button on the top left-hand corner, and you go to your classes this way. You can just click on the three little buttons and you can just hit copy, and it will copy an entire class over again for you to start fresh. And then it will, the only thing is it'll all just sit there until you're ready to post assignments. So students will only see when you decide to post something. So that's really helpful if you really develop your Google Classroom and you have a lot of really good stuff in there. To start over fresh again the next year from scratch is a lot. So you could really you could create like a template if you wanted to that has just the stuff you need, maybe not all the announcements and things like that. And I think actually when you copy it over, it might only copy assignments and materials, but I don't know that it copies every single announcement that you've given to your classes. So that copy link is super helpful, and it's a huge time saver from year to year. So that was something, you just hit those three little buttons and hit copy, and it will make a copy of that class. And then you can go in and change the name, or you can go in and change whatever you want before you share it with your students and post anything. So that's a really cool feature, a cool time saver. Another really good time saver, and I use this all the time. Usually what I do is I'm going to pick one of my core classes that I have that I use this year. And if you go to classwork and you go to create an assignment, you just click the button create, and there's a reuse a post. So let's say I do everything in one, I do all of my planning ahead, and I take my first core group and I create a really awesome assignment. So let's say I've done that already. And I want to go find where I did that and I want to reuse it. So you can just go to any of your classes and you can reuse anything that you've already created, which is really nice. So if you take your time and you put a lot of detail into doing it once, then you can just keep reusing that. Or when you create an assignment from scratch, you can also go over and select, like if you do a really good job creating it and give it a title, give it instructions, put the rubric in there, get it all set up, all of your links and everything, then you can click which classes, if you have 4 classes that are doing the same thing, then you just click which of the classes you want to assign that to. The only thing is, that's a little tricky when you do that and you assign it and you've selected multiple classes, they all have to get it at the same time. Or you can put it in the draft and then you can assign each class when you're ready to assign it. There is a feature in Google Classroom where when you go to assign, you can schedule. So you can select multiple classes. So if you do a really good job, you can select multiple, like I want it to go to earth, air, water. You just click them on just by easily clicking, and then that assignment will go to all of them. So most people know that one. That's not something new. So you can definitely reuse assignments as many times as you want. That's why it's good if you have a template class and you only want to just go get things as you need them. You can pull and reuse assignments from that template class. That might be a helpful tool. There's a really cool feature where if you have a great suggestion or there's something that really bothers you or you have a question about, I'll show you where you can go and you can ask the Google people about it or make recommendations like, hey, it'd be really cool if you guys incorporated this. And they listen, they really do. The way I organize my classwork, you have to really think like what's going to be the best for your students. I typically organize mine by the type of assignment, but there are a lot of different ways you can do it. And this is a link where it says organize and filter classwork. There's a really cool link to organizing Google Classroom assignments. And so if you click on it in the slideshow, you can get to it. If you were doing different time periods in history, you could do it by your different units that you're doing, or maybe you're doing in middle school math, geometry, this quarter. And then, so you might organize it by that. But this link shows you really cool ways to organize it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I organize mine. This is my class for this year. I have speaking and listening, a novel that we did, Long Way Down. I have a resources section. And then I create topics over here on the left-hand side. And you can create topics. And then a student can say, oh, we're going to Long Way Down. And then they just click on Long Way Down and only the Long Way Down stuff shows. It gets rid of everything else. And so that's why it's kind of good to use topics, but you can decide how you want to set up your topic. So if you want to do it by unit, I saw something in that link that I just gave you. They said you could organize it by week, the first week of school, September 4th through 8th. Then you could do the next week. And some people like to organize their work by week. And that way a student can say, well, I want to go back to last week and see what I had. And what's really cool about that is it will put the newest week on the top. And then I'll show you in a little bit, you can rearrange and keep moving things to the top. The most important stuff always goes to the top. So I never thought about that, but that's a really cool idea to organize it by the week. I think the most common is units or modules, or by type of assignment. Elementary people could do subject area. I suppose they could have a section for math, reading, science, social studies, or you could even do it by standard or learning target. So there's a lot of different ways that you can organize and filter your page so that it's easy for you and easy for your students to find things. Another really cool thing that Google Classroom allows you to do is to differentiate assignments or announcements. If you have students perhaps that need some accommodations, maybe you have some students that are home on quarantine right now, and they might need a little more information than the students in class because they're working on it on their own. You can go in, and when you create an assignment, so you would go to classwork, you would go to create an assignment, and then you can select over here on the right-hand side who's going to get this assignment. You could have an assignment one that's the original assignment, and maybe one that has some modifications. And you can go in and you can decide who's going to get, you can uncheck all students, that's the default, but you can uncheck all students and you can just select like, okay, these particular students need to get this assignment. And then when you create the other assignment that has modifications or accommodations with it or whatever, then you select which students get that assignment. And then all students are going to get an assignment. You can say, go to Google Classroom and open up your assignment. They're all going to have the same topic, but some are going to get an assignment that might look a little different than others because you've identified which students get those assignments. So that's super helpful. But the default is that all students will get it. And unless you go in and select which students, that's also a really cool feature. So you can differentiate and give certain things to certain students. They're not going to know any different because they're all still going to get an assignment from you in Google Classroom. Okay, so that's the differentiate. Oh, there's another to review. So when you go to, you can kind of see everything in one place. This is something that I don't use all that often, but if you go back to your class list, you can see that there's a to-do button at the top, a to review button. So for a teacher who's getting assignments, you can click on to review and you can select which classes you want, but it shows me like, oh, wow, I have this assignment that I created and it's due. It tells you when it's due, what group it is, how many kids have turned it in so far. So you'll see how many you've graded and it will show you as many classes as you want. You can just, click which classes you want to use. Or you can look at them all and you can say, wow, I have a lot of work to grade over this long weekend. So anyway, that's kind of a cool feature that I never had really clicked on a whole lot before. And then of course, there's that to-do list also. And students also have a to-do list and they'll be able to see any assignments for all of their classes. If there's anything coming up or any due dates coming up, students can use the to-do button as well. So that's a really cool feature. Here's a really, really cool thing. Linking directly to an assignment or topic. There are a lot of times where a student will say, I don't even know where to find that, or I don't know what an assignment is. Or a better way that I've used this is in PowerSchool. When you go to PowerSchool and you're creating an assignment in PowerSchool, there's a place at the bottom where you can put a description of the assignment. Sometimes I put the link to the assignment in Google Classroom in PowerSchool at the bottom. And that way, when a student goes in and it says, hey, you're missing this assignment, they can look at the little note and they can go in and click and go right to the assignment in Google Classroom. So I'll show you real quick where you can find that. If you click on, let's say I have my anagram poem assignment, you can right here, copy link. So it's pretty easy. I just never have used that before. And so this year I've started using that a little bit more. So if students are emailing me saying, and they're home saying they don't know what to do, what's my homework assignment, I always just include the link and when they click on it, it just takes them right to it in Google Classroom. And like I said, I've been putting it in PowerSchool as well. I just feel like it's such an easy thing to do. So that's just copying a link to a specific assignment. And if parents ask too, parents can see certain things when you add them. I'll get to that in just a minute. So as you guys probably noticed, I think it was the end of last year, maybe earlier, Google Classroom added bullets and formatting. So when you're going in and creating your assignment, for example, like right here, there's all these bold, italics, underline, bulleted list. How cool is that? And formatting. So I could have, I think I can highlight it and I think I can just, there we go. And now it's bulleted. Or I could make certain things bold if I wanted to, or italicized. And so we're so used to that in Google Documents, but before it was not available when all of your assignments just looked blah. which mine does right now, but you can make it look better. You can underline certain things, italicize certain things. So that's just a simple, easy thing that I don't even know if people knew it was just all of a sudden in there last year, but definitely use it. It helps direct kids to really important things. The move to the top button is really cool. So over here, let's say the helpful tips slideshow, I posted new material. Let's say I like doing it in my classwork. Sometimes kids, we have to revisit something and I want to move it to the top. You just click the three little buttons and you can move this up. So the writing goes from here. I can keep moving it right up to the top. Sometimes it'll say even move to the top, or you can move it down. So if you really want something to stay at the top all the time, you just keep moving it up, or you can move it down in the list and it will just keep going down. So that's always super helpful too. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff in there. So the way we organize it for our students to help them find it, it's pretty important to think of those things for our students. Inviting co-teachers and parents is also a really cool feature. So I can go to my Google Classroom and you can go to the People tab at the top. You can invite teachers. There's a thing up here at the top. So if I want to invite Anne, who's here in the meeting, I can invite him. Remember that everyone you invite to be a co-teacher in the class can do everything you can do except delete the class. So they can go in and delete assignments, they can add assignments, but now I can see that Dan is invited to this to be a co-teacher in this class. I do this with any special service students, any of their teachers, if there's a GT teacher, and Dan is our GT teacher. So in our building, they can see what their students are doing in my language arts class, which is kind of cool. And that's great for special service teachers to be included as a co-teacher in the class. And you can also, as you can see, you can invite guardians. The cool thing about where we work on a community at our school and we share students, the science teacher invites the guardians. It's invited for everyone who has that student. So I'll automatically see that there are guardians invited. And so you just click on it and you put the guardian's email in and you just invite them. They'll get an email and they can decide whether to join. And they basically just get updates. They'll see when assignments are due. I don't think they can specifically go into their own child's assignment and do anything in there, but they'll see that you've updated something or added a new piece of material. So that's also a really cool feature. So you can invite teachers and if I don't want Dan there anymore, I can remove him and he won't be able to, sorry, Dan. And you can also invite guardians. And then let's see the last slide, archiving classes. So as you can see, if I go to my menu, I can see all of my classes again, all of them. Look at all of these classes. And I had a whole bunch more from last year, but you can't see them because I have archived them. And so the way you archive a class, I'm going to go do it right now. So there's three little buttons at the top. You click on it and you can do different things with the class. You can edit, copy the class, or you can archive the class, and you can just click archive and it just causes it to be archived for all participants. It'll go to an archived list. And so I'll archive this one and I'm like, oh, darn, I really needed something from that class. So you can actually click on your menu lines at the top. And if you scroll all the way down, you can go to your archived classes. So it's not a problem if you archive it, you can always get it back. And you can tell it's been archived because it has these slash lines through the banner. And you can go back and look at all of the classes that I've archived over the years, and they're all in there. So you can go back as far as you want. The 2015-16 is in there. So that's a pretty cool feature also. So it's just under archived classes and you can get them all back if you need to. And then you can just click on classes to get back to your regular classes. Oh, you can email everyone in your class using the People tab. You just go to classes, you pick your class. I could email all of you right now if I wanted to. I could select all and under actions, hit email. And so you can email a whole class in just a very quick couple buttons here. And you can unselect everyone, and you can just select certain people and then hit actions, and you can email just certain people in the class. I did talk at the beginning about going in and setting your email notifications. I can review that real quickly. Let's see. Remember, it's under the menu button, and you just go all the way to the bottom under settings. And then that was one of the first things we did. So you can change your notifications from classes that you are either enrolled in or are teaching. The last thing I wanted to show you is to remember I said you could report an issue or request a feature to be added. If you go to your classes, down in the bottom, in the left-hand corner, I'm kind of circling it with my mouse, there's a little question mark. And if you click on that question mark, you can see what's new in Google Classroom. What are some new things they've added? You can report an issue or request a new feature. Like if there's something you're like, geez, I wish they would do something about this, let them know. Because like I said, they're really good. There's a help center and a help community. So if you ever have questions and you need anything, you could go here. You can also Google it. One thing that I didn't show you that was really cool, let me just do a quick refresher. So if you joined under classwork, there's topics, and the way you create topics, there's a couple different ways to create topics. You can click create and you can create a topic. Easy as that. And so you could just call it, I don't know, tips. There we go. And you can add it, and it just gets put over at the top under tips. And if you don't want it there, you can remove it. Oh yes, you go over here to the three buttons and you can rename it or delete it. And if I don't want tips to be there as a topic anymore, I can just delete it. Under classwork, you can also, one of the recommendations that they say is to help your students if you number your assignments. So if you number the first one, number 001, and then if as the year goes on, you number assignment 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that helps students also find things in your, because as the year goes on, it gets pretty long and there's a lot of stuff. Another suggestion that people had was to try to put like an emoji in front of things that are graded. And a good one to use is an exclamation mark. And I got that from emojicopy.com. And you can find that, and I put the link for this in the stream, but you can find a good one right here is where I got it. And you just click on it and it puts it in this little window, and then you just hit the copy button, and then you go into your assignment and you just paste it in. And so sometimes students have a hard time knowing, is something just collected? Is it just informational? So you could have different symbols for different things. Maybe it's just something that's collected only. So you might want to just put a check there and use the checkbox, and you can copy the checkbox. That's also kind of helpful as well. So I know there's just so many little teeny things that just can make our lives easier. And we just don't have the time usually to figure them out because we can just usually get through every single day. But hopefully we can, share some of these tips with each other. And any questions, anyone else? Or I think now that people have classes set up, they're probably getting overwhelmed with tons of emails or things. So at least now you may know where to go to limit the amount of emails you're getting. Or
Denise, one of the things I wanted to know was if you're creating assignments in Google Classroom, do you have to put them in PowerSchool as well? Like that's one of the things I've never done.
So yes, there's a thing for grades. And so right up on the top where it says stream classwork people, grades. So everyone who joined the classroom today gets put down the left-hand side, and then all of the classes or all of the things that I put in that are going to be graded get put into a grade thing. Some people go into Google Classroom, they grade things and they assign the students a grade. And I would show a class of mine, but then of course I have kids in there and I don't want to do it for confidentiality, but like I could go in and assign a grade to, let's see,
Yeah, you
Adam.
can assign me a grade.
Here, I'll assign Ben a grade. Okay, so Ben got 100, little smarty pants. There we go. You can, in the settings, you can say that you want it to average it all together to give an overall grade. I don't use that. I use Power School. I want students to check Power School for their late assignments, their missing assignments, their graded assignments. This is kind of helpful though. You know, if some people like to grade in Google Classroom, but then you need to transfer that to Power School. I don't believe there is a way right now to get them to go from Google Classroom automatically. You have to do it on your own. Good question.
Yeah, I like to send my kiddos to Power School and then have them double check in Google Classroom, because it kind of gives me the chance for them to show me that they've turned something back in that I haven't gotten an update for.
Right.
Because you're right, 80 plus, assignments, and sometimes 1 out of 80 emails gets mysteriously buried.
Right. One thing too, that's really the way I have mine set up is I don't get a notification every time someone turns in assignment. I do get notified if someone turns in an assignment after the due date. So I don't get it when they're turning it in initially on time. And that's kind of nice because I don't go hang out in Google Classroom all the time and like, okay, did so-and-so turn this in yet? So I tried to tweak my settings so that if it comes in after the due date, I do get it. And then I know to go back in and check it. So that's helpful also. Yeah, Canva is great. Thank you, Ben, for putting that Canva link in there. I love using that. And they have that great banner templates. They have great banner templates. So
Yeah, I had been looking for something to customize those. So that was good to hear.
good. Perfect. The only thing I cannot figure out, let me show you something. It comes on as really dark. So it comes like you can see, like when you saw it in here, when I go to my classes, see how nicely bright colored green that is? But then when I click on that, it's like kind of dark and faded. And I can't figure out how to do that.
Well, that's why I hadn't customized anything yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Google Classroom does have a lot of templates that you can choose from, but it's kind of nice sometimes to put your own name on it or something for the students. Because if they have 5 different teachers and there's a Google Classroom for each teacher, if we could put our name on it for them or our subject area instead of it's good to have their group name on there for us so we can see the different groups, but they should also be able to see their air for everyone or their whatever the class name is for every one of us. That's not helpful to them. So it's really important to view it from a student's perspective as well. Excellent. Beautiful. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.